Hello. Oh, thank you. It's University of Miami, by the way, not Florida. Florida's the other school. But wow, the king has created quite a stir in the news media these days. I heard that there's a lot of cult members gathering somewhere. I don't know. Have you seen any? I don't see any under here. Wait, I thought to be a member of a cult, you had to live in a commune and all be together all the time. I don't know how that's going to work here, since everybody owns their own property, their own homes, their own guns, their own cars, and we only come here on church events to gather and worship God. That's all. So. But yeah, it's been a very interesting few days. I mean, when I came out here with my brother, after our father went to the spirit world, of course my father had anointed him and appointed him and blessed him to be his successor and to inherit and carry on his lineage and tradition for generations to come. And yet the entire church which followed my father had basically turned their back on him. But I tell you, the Lord works in mysterious ways, because he led the king out here to the wilderness, and instead of being a king in a palace, separated from the people, he came out to live with the birds and the bees and the bears in the woods, and he came to live with the regular folk. And so now, instead of having a king in the palace, we got a king amongst us who's basically is one of us. So thank God for that. But it's quite interesting because, the community in which he grew up and in which I grew up may have rejected him, but it seems like the entire world can't keep away from him. No matter how much the church would like to ignore him, or even for that matter, for this entire society and world and community, it seems like they can't ignore him. I mean, he's out here in the middle of the wilderness and not many people are around, but everybody still pays attention. Somehow we're out here, and somehow God brings Eric Trump and the Trump family right to Pike County, right to where we're at. And that kind of really tells the story of the people of the good book, when you look at that story starting from, after the fall of man and Adam and Eve and God working through Abraham and all these people. I mean, he's working through a lineage of people, a family line. And it's not a lot of people. It's not people who are high and mighty, who own the nations, who actually are the rulers. It's actually, in many regards, the humble people which have carried on this tradition of the good book and which have paved the way for God's work and God's providence to be conducted on this earth, and it's the humble people who have laid the foundations for the nation the Christian nations to be built. And so this is what we have to always be mindful of as we live our lives and we try to attend the good Lord and do his wishes and his will on earth, is that God works through humble people. He's not the king of the palaces. He doesn't rule in the palaces and in the high places. If you give the good Lord a choice, he'll be happy being a carpenter and building a house with the regular folk. And when Jesus did come the first time around, he was a carpenter. And he didn't hang out in the palaces. He hung out with the prostitutes, the poor people, the tax collectors, the guys making a regular living, the fishermen, the hunters. Those are the kind of people that Christ gathered. And so we know that God has a particular way of working, and when we see the ministry here as it's developing and growing, we know that God's fingerprint is on this ministry, and we know that God is with our second king, and we know the work that he's doing is really to advance, the gifts which God wants to give to not only all of you, not only to the king, but to all of humanity. Because the gifts which God has given us is the gift of freedom and responsibility. To be the inheritors of the earth, to rule the earth, to have dominion over all things, to have the dominion over the rod of iron. What a powerful teaching. What a great love. I mean, a father that can truly love his children so that he raises them to be strong and he empowers them with the rod of iron. And as we understand that rod of iron, which was written about in the Bible for so many thousands of years ago in the book of Revelations, when John received those revelations, that was referring to the AR-15. So, just like my brother's been saying, I tell you, if you love God, you love Christ, and you don't have an AR-15, you are in disobedience to his teaching. That would make you a heretic. So I'm sorry to say, but if you're a Christian and you don't have an AR-15, you're a heretic. But there's a lot of interesting things which the king has been talking about, and he pointed out in Revelation 3, it says very clearly that when Christ returns, he doesn't use the name Jesus. He comes with a new name. That's in the Bible. So everything which has been written is being fulfilled, and you got to take the revelations which God gave to us seriously. Otherwise, you'll miss his providence. And if you miss his providence and you ignore his work while he's working on the earth, well, the good book tells you what will happen to those folks too. If you don't help God out with his works, when you end up dying and you go before the judge, God's going to say, hey, not all the people who call me Father and Lord will enter the kingdom. What did you do when I was working on earth? I had my son there, and you didn't do anything to help him. It's going to be a bad spot for you when you get before the judge if that comes to pass like that. So we're just very grateful that we are able to assist the king in his work at this time, and that we can witness and see this community become so blessed by God. And I imagine that the rabid left and the satanic demons and the powers that be of the world will try to make the king look out to be the new crazy cult leader. But the more they attack him, I think God's just going to make him bigger and bigger. I mean, we have definitely come to the point where the sanctuary movement is going from being a little community movement to hitting the world stage pretty quickly. Well, thank you, folks, and thank you, King.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Moon.